Hello, and welcome to the Rundle Academy Study Strategies video. I'm Miss A, and I can't wait for you to join us on this marvelous learning adventure.
One of the strategies that I have been working with a lot of my students in social studies is actually verbalizing content before you guys write. I'm not sure if you guys know, but a lot of you have very strong verbal comprehension skills. So whether that's talking to a teacher, to a peer, or even recording yourself going through the brainstorming thoughts and listening back to those can be really beneficial to writers who are maybe stuck in writer's block or trying to find the perfect place and right way to start.
Strategy I love, especially for biology where you have to memorize a lot of information, is a checklist. So I often give my students a checklist that they have to go through and memorize. And in a class, if you don't have a checklist given to you, you can create your own, and you can ask your teacher to help you create that checklist so you can go home and you have a guide of what you need to study, and you don't check it off until you know it really well. And so checklists are awesome.
I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about active reading. You're probably going to have a lot of teachers recommending active reading to you in all of your subjects. But in English, I just want to show you how it can look, say if you're annotating a novel. So hopefully what you can see here is that my pages are definitely written on. I like to call this thinking on paper. So as I'm reading, I'm highlighting things that seem important. They could be key passages. They could be words that might seem to mean more than what they say. There could be symbolism, foreshadowing. But I'm also making comments on my thought process as I'm reading it, so that there's a record of the thoughts and patterns and themes, ideas that might be emerging. This is helpful to keep me engaged as I'm reading, so that I'm paying attention, I'm actively working as I'm reading. But this is also really helpful later, because when I want to go back and write about this, then it's really easy for me to find what it is that I'm looking for without reading through pages and pages, chapters and chapters to find the one thing that I need.
Strategy is really important to use in both math and physics, and probably all of the sciences. It's a combination of active reading and being able to pull really important information from a specific question so that we can ignore the really large wordiness of a potential word problem. So for example, on this one, we have an average mark on an English exam was 63. So I would underline average mark and 63. And then before I move on, I'm going to begin a list that I like to call my givens list. And right away, I'm going to rewrite my variable that stands for average and 63. So in this particular question, average is represented with the symbol mu. So I'll put mu equals 63. Keep going. The standard deviation was 12. So I'll underline standard deviation and 12, and we are going to copy that down as well into my givens list. So the standard deviation is this symbol, equals 12. The marks are normally distributed, and a student's Z-score was 1.5. So again, that seems like, because it's numerical information, it's going to be super important for us to underline. Z-score is represented with the letter Z, and that is 1.5. Then what is the student's actual mark? So underlining what the question's asking, it's asking for an actual mark, which in this particular case is represented with the letter X. And then we'll just give it a question mark. Now, the valuable part of this particular step is now I can completely ignore what the question's asking. I don't need to be overwhelmed anymore by all this wordiness. And I can just look at my givens list and go right from there, working with my equations or whatever my next steps might be. Another rule that I find really helpful in math and physics is when you're working through your notes pack, have something that you leave as kind of a clue to yourself or a note to yourself that this section might be kind of a summary or something that kind of wraps up that whole lesson. Often what happens is that in the note packs is we teach a bunch of stuff, and then at the end we will summarize it somewhere. And the problem is being able to go back into your notes pack and find those summary points, when maybe you're stuck or you're not sure. So for example, whenever I see something that looks like a summary, so for example, this is how to convert from entire to mixed radicals. It's a really nice flow chart. It makes a lot of sense to me. So as a student, I would put a nice big pink box around it, and then I might even put a nice big pink star on either end. So on top of active reading the actual notes, which we all know is super valuable, it's also good to just stay consistent within your own notes so that when you're frantically flipping through something, trying to complete a homework assignment, they jump out to you and you know exactly where that most valuable information is.
A strategy that you could try is color coding. It's helpful because it helps you to see the different steps required in equations at a glance. So for example, in math, you can color code all the different steps so you can get to the answer and you know which ones go together. And you can also go, for science, for equations, you can color code all the different required formulas, and then when you go into a word problem, you can use the same color so you know which areas that you need to find to solve the actual word problem. And if you're looking to find out different strategies, just come find Mrs. Cawthorpe, which is me, anytime you want.
Hello Rundle Academy students. Here's a little quick video on how to be successful in Social Studies 10, 11, and 12 when it comes to study. And the first thing that you should always do is use these study guides that we will give you prior to summative assessments. This one here is a very interactive study guide that gives you Quizlet terms. It goes to articles about the thing. It goes to videos that we've watched, review videos, goes to collaborative study guides, goes over and links to concepts that will be tested on this exam. We also often always give you possible short answers that will be done on the exam, but you should go through and answer those. Go back, and if you can see, there's all kinds of ways in which you can review for this. The best thing about this is that we ask that you study for about 20 minutes each day, because cramming at the end just before tests doesn't really do much help with that. It probably makes you much more nervous. The best thing about it is after day 2, if you're studying and you're struggling with some concepts and stuff like that, then that leads to the second thing I should say that you can do to be successful, and that is to come in for extra help. Those students that are very successful in social studies in all grade levels are the ones that will come in for extra help at least once prior to a large exam and bring in specific questions and go over concepts that they're unsure of. And that is the second thing. The third thing that you should do is oftentimes we do what we call our 4-3-2-1 working memory activities at the start of each class. Those are extremely important, and if you're organized and have saved those and put them into your binder or your filing system, you should go over those, because those are the concepts that we're going to test, and you can be guaranteed that they're going to be on there. So some strategies is to definitely also to make sure that you have a study place that is quiet, okay, and that you are going through the study guide and you're spending the appropriate amount of time, not too much time, and you're not being distracted by a whole bunch of other different things. And to engage with what you're doing by often maybe writing down jot notes or however you want to do it. Those are 3 or 4 very important things that you can do to be successful.
A learning strategy that works well for me is to actively take notes in class so I can spend less time at home studying.
A study strategy that I would really recommend is taking rough notes in class, and then when you get home, rewriting them in a way that makes sense to you.
Alright, so my strategy for achieving success is to make cue cards and add notes in my notebook for ELA and social studies. Ready?
Strategies that I like to use in my ELA and social class are highlighting and annotating notes, especially vocabulary and designated passages that I don't understand.
Bio class, my figure study strategy is using analogies like the lock and key method for enzymes.
You should try memory linking.
What is memory linking, Aaron?
Oh, memory linking is when you take a subject and you relate it personally to yourself or to something in your daily life so you can recall the information better.
A study strategy that works for me is rewriting my notes on a whiteboard until it makes sense.
A couple strategies that work for me when I'm studying or if I'm having trouble with a concept are going to extra help and also rewriting my notes when I go home and color coding.
Thank you for joining us today. I hope you were able to get some wonderful strategies that you can put into good use. You will now be joining your TA teachers to put some of these skills into practice. I hope you will see they are extremely helpful. Thank you for joining us.
Hey, strategy. God. All right, let's try that one more time.
Math and physics is being able to really identify.
Let me do it again!